You're watching KLTX, Channel 15, serving the city of Lufkin.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming today in spite of the weather, and I welcome you all here for our annual work zone event. At this time, I'd like to introduce our district engineer, Cheryl Peeplup.
Thank you, Rhonda. Morning. I want to welcome everyone here today for the Lufkin District's annual Work Zone Awareness Distracted Driving Safety Campaign event. Work Zone Awareness and Distracted Driving are both safety campaigns that TxDOT recognizes and works to promote each year in an effort to reduce the number of crashes in work zones and on the roadways. TxDOT and local law enforcement, as well as safety advocates, join together with us to ask motorists to stay alert and slow down when driving through work zones on Texas highways. We appreciate your support of this important safety message. For 2018, the statewide statistic for crashes that occurred in our work zones were 25,162. Of those crashes, there were 161 fatalities and 684 serious injuries. These numbers reflect a 20% decrease from 2017 in both crashes and fatalities. The decrease in numbers is encouraging, but the Lufkin District statistics are still too high. For the 9-county Lufkin District in 2018, there were 125 traffic crashes in work zones that resulted in 2 fatalities and 10 serious injuries. That means we still have work to do in making the public aware of how to stay safe as they drive through a work zone and the importance of being alert. Safety around work zones is a year-round concern for TxDOT because our men and women never stop working to build, repair, and improve Texas roadways. Also helping us year-round is our local law enforcement, who put their lives on the line daily to not only support TxDOT, but to help the public stay safe. Here with us today is Sergeant David Hendry, Texas Highway Patrol Education Officer, with the Lufkin Office of the Department of Public Safety. Please join me in welcoming Sergeant Henry, who will remind us of the law in work zones and explain the move over, slow down law.
Thank you, Cheryl. When we first started doing this, I didn't have to have these, but times have changed a little bit. Thank all of you for coming today as well. We appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. Today, you are right. The statewide numbers for crashes in work zones have decreased, but we still have a lot of work to do. Law enforcement's goal is to prevent all crashes. We work daily to support not only safety, but also enforce the law in an effort to keep the traveling public safe. I've seen a lot of crashes in my career in law enforcement. Many of these crashes have occurred in work zones because of driver inattention. The Department of Public Safety wants you, your family, and loved ones to get home safe. Please make driving a priority when behind the wheel. We believe speed, alcohol, and distracted driving to be the biggest causes of crashes on our roadways today. Just recently, last week, we had a crash on 69 South with new highways coming in a construction zone where a truck turned over. So we have a lot of responsibility ourselves to be vigilant while we drive. We also find it disturbing that 84% of those killed in a work zone were motorists or their passengers, while the other 16% were pedestrians, cyclists, and workers. There are a lot of things that can distract drivers as they drive through a work zone, like equipment, workers, different types of barriers, slow-moving traffic, and even traffic control can distract you as well. All the more reason to reduce your speed and stay alert with what's going on around you. DPS also wants to remind Texas drivers of the move over, slow down law, which requires drivers to move over a lane or reduce their speed by 20 miles an hour below the posted limit when they see flashing blue or amber lights on a TxDOT vehicle, emergency vehicles, tow trucks that are stopped on the side of the road. Not doing so can result in a fine of up to $2,000. Thank you for your time today, and please be safe while you're out driving. Thank you.
Thank you, David. There is never a crash in a work zone that I don't have an immediate concern for our TxDOT workers and our contractors' safety. My first question is often, was anybody hurt? I've heard many scary stories of close calls that our own employees have had on the roadway or in work zones. Here today to share some of those experiences is Wayne Ashby, Lufkin District Maintenance Administrator. He is one of the first points of contact when a crash occurs. Please join me in welcoming Wayne.
Thank you. And I'm seeing a trend with these glasses here. I don't know. I don't have to wear them all the time though, but just when I need to see stuff. As she said, I got some notes here. I want to make sure I don't forget, so I'm gonna plop this up here. Just like she said. First off, I'm gonna tell you what I do as a general rule. We got 9 counties in our district, and in those 9 counties, we have a supervisor and we have a crew of people who spend the majority of their day out on the pavement, on the right of way, working in the middle of this traffic. And my job is generally to try to make sure they've got the resources they need in order to get that done. So, but I do want to thank, especially, we got a lot of orange shirts here, which is great, but our visitors, I want to thank you guys for being here. It lets me know that we obviously know how critical this is, but it lets me know that you realize it also. So thank you a lot for that. Okay, first thing I want to start out by doing, I don't want to get long-winded or anything, but that's never really happened with me, but it could, so I don't want to do that. I'll make yourself some notes here. I did want to kind of walk through some of the stuff that you saw maybe when you walked in outside, and some of the stuff in here that you will encounter in a normal work zone. You've all seen it. Everybody's driven by it, but a lot of the stuff, I don't think they really realize how much stuff is out there. One of the first things everybody knows, the first thing you see when you come up on a work zone is going to be probably some signs, right? And I don't know that people realize, though, the orange actually has a significance. The orange actually means it's not just that we love orange, obviously. It's not a fashion statement, but that signifies that there's some temporary work, some construction, maintenance, work zone. Somebody's doing something in the road that's not a normal everyday activity, okay? A lot of people don't realize that, or it appears that they don't realize that. Work zones are set up differently based on the type of road it is, how much traffic it is, how wide the road, speed, a lot of different variables go into it, but 59, just as a general rule, is our major corridor that goes through here. Everybody's familiar with 59. Between here and Nacogdoches, we're working on 59. Going into a work zone before you ever get to a human being working in the road, how many of these signs do you think you'll see? 3. Good guess. 8. You'll drive by before you ever get to the actual work that's being taken, that's happening on the road. You're going to drive by 8 of these signs. 4x4, 16 square feet. Okay? A lot of people don't realize that. It happens pretty quick, especially when you're not paying attention to what you're doing. All right? Also, you're going to drive over probably some of these that you've seen and you've heard people complain about. I could tell you some funny stories about that. This is just one section of it, but these are called rumble strips. And the whole purpose of these is to get people's attention who are just driving along in la-la land. They run over these, okay? Depending on which lane you're in and what we're doing in the road, you're going to run over a minimum of 3 of these. And you could run over 6 of them. If we're asking you to move from this lane into the other, then you're going to run over 6 of them as a kind of a double reminder, okay? Then once you get past that, most often you're going to see an arrow board, a big illuminated board that's got a flashing arrow on it. It may be caution on 4 corners to tell you just caution, slow down. Maybe an arrow asking you to move from one area to the other, okay? Then you're going to start seeing cones. that are probably going to move you from one lane to the other. Those cones are going to be stretched out for a long distance. Then you're going to see probably what we call an attenuator. And if you notice when you come in the front door, to the right of the parking lot over there was an attenuator that had actually been hit. And the purpose of that is basically a shock absorber, for lack of a better term, that protects our workers, and it cushions if somebody impacts it from the back in a vehicle, it protects them also. You're going to go by all of that before you ever get to anybody working in the roadway. Now, who can tell me how long a distance that is from this first sign you see until you get to somebody standing in the road doing something? Out here on 59, 75 mile an hour speed limit. Nobody in orange can answer. You're not eligible for the prize. It's about a mile. It's about a mile from this first sign until you get past that attenuator, which should be parked as close as possible where the work's taking place. That's a pretty significant number. And what we often hear after an accident, and Sergeant can attest to this, you wouldn't believe how many times I've heard people say, I didn't know y'all were out here. I didn't know y'all were working out here today. And it literally amazes me that you could drive past and over and around all that stuff and not realize something's going on. So, and I could give you many, many examples, and that's really what my job was, but I wanted to walk through some of that stuff. A lot of examples of things that have happened. That same situation actually on 59, we had people drive around all that stuff, managed to get past that attenuator and actually run into an 80,000 pound, it's gigantic, size of a small home, yellow, and they ran into that after they had gone around all of that stuff. And it just happened to be a few seconds. This piece of equipment has some control boxes to operate it on the back corners of it. So periodically you have to walk to this corner and fiddle with those controls. The guy that did that walked away, and within seconds the guy hit right there. And that's just not luckily nobody was around, but an 80,000 pound piece of equipment and a 6,500 pound truck and a 200 pound person in between it is not it's easy to do the math on that. Recently, we've had what seems like a rash of rear end collisions also, where we, on a 2-lane road, are required to stop traffic on both ends and alternate them through the work zone following a pilot car. And we've got flaggers out there. We've got the same sign set up. We've got these rumble strips, and we've had a rash of people. There would already be several cars that were stopped, saw what was going on, stopped, sitting there at the flagging station, and somebody just plows into the back of them. We had an 18-wheeler, a loaded 18-wheeler that did that, and the sight distance, I mean, it wasn't around a curve, over a hill, anything. It was a long straightaway. He hit the back of about 5 vehicles sitting there, and he never touched his brakes. It's amazing. It's a professional truck driver. So that's not a pretty scene either. It has a tendency to spray smaller vehicles all over the place in every direction. And another one that comes to my mind, and it's kind of, we actually laughed about it after it happened, but I guess you just laugh to keep from having a nervous breakdown. But we had already had an accident, and it was on 59. We had an accident that we were trying to divert traffic around, so we had a detour set up. This was in the middle of the day, and we had some ramps closed, and we were letting people go up a ramp, turning on another side road. We had vehicles sitting there with lights on. And just across the intersection, we had some of these type 3 barricades like you see outside that look like a fence, but they got orange and white stripes on them. And here comes this guy in a pickup. And we see him coming, and we have some people stationed there to kind of inform people Hey, it's a detour. You need to go down here and take a left, kind of give them some information. Here comes this guy, and I happened to be there. I could see something under his truck, and I'm like, this is kind of unusual. Well, they're trying to wave him down. He did not slow down. He did not acknowledge anybody was even there. Went right by, and as he went by, I could see it was cones hanging under his vehicle. He went through that intersection, knocked both of those barricades out of the way, and kept going. And law enforcement happened to be fairly close, so we called them, hey, this guy's fixing to kill somebody. They managed to get him stopped several miles down the road, and he actually tried to convince them that it wasn't him. He hadn't hit anything, and he still had those cones dragging under his truck. Now, he was intoxicated, but in the middle of the day. So you never know. You never know. And I could tell story after story about that, and I don't want to take a lot of time doing that. But like I said, some of them are almost funny, but in the end, they're not. They're not funny at all, because that same guy would have just easily ran over somebody and not stopped, kept going. So I want to end, but I want to end on a more serious note. I can remember I've gone to a lot of accidents in my time, and I've gone to a lot of fatality accidents in my time, and I remember every one of them. And it gives you a feeling in your gut that you don't forget. And I remember the first time I saw 2 sheets and over the 2 front bucket seats of a car. This was years ago, and that was the first time I had ever had to deal with that. And it gives you a weird feeling in your stomach. So if we could, I don't want anybody to have to necessarily have that feeling, but I know if they did, that they would slow down when they saw these. I know. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Yesterday morning, I had a conference call with various people across the state, and as Wayne brought up, something we see quite a bit is a queue of traffic waiting for a 2-lane road to be, for 1 lane. Laredo actually, just in the last week, had a queue of traffic. An 18-wheeler ran into the back of a car, and a third party was killed. So it's just, like Wayne said, they had portable changeable message boards, rumble strips, and error boards, and it still happens. So that's what we're here today to talk about is, stay focused and be aware of what's going on around you. As our crews work throughout the district and across the state, we employ companies who help secure our safety as well as conduct traffic control in and around our work zones. One of those companies is Area Wide Protective, AWP, based in Ohio with 24 locations in Texas and states along the East Coast. With us today from Waco, representing AWP, is Jackie Robinson, Traffic Control Contracts Manager. Jackie has been employed with AWP for 18 years and was instrumental in developing the flagging program that we have in many of our work zones. Please join me in welcoming Jackie.
Following these two, I use glasses too, but I don't think I'll need them today. Thank you, Ms. Flood. AWP was opened in 1992 as a small security company. And they had a client that wanted flagging one day and saw that it was a lucrative adventure, so they decided to start flagging and got out of the security business. We embrace a safety model and message that every team member looking out for each other's well-being. The entire AWP team supports a collective goal by agreeing to think, practice, and support safety every day in everything that we do. Even though our workers embrace that safety message daily, that doesn't mean that crashes won't happen. In my 18 years with AWP, I've seen a lot of accidents. Most of the crashes result because of driver inattention. I want to share with you today 3 of those accidents that's happened with our people. The first one I want to talk about is with a 19-year-old flagger. Happened just right outside of Lufkin here in 2006. Her name was Kristen Holloway. That name will go with me to my grave. That girl did everything right. She had her cones, had all of her signs set up properly. A 91-year-old man who his family had hidden his keys from him, found his keys, got in his Suburban, was coming to town, and run off the road to run over her. And it killed her on the spot. But she did everything right, and was nothing could be done. But her and 2 of her other family members worked for us for several years. And her mother and sister continued to work for us for several years after that. The second incident, sorry to say, also happened here in Lufkin. And it was also just west of here. The guy's name was Corey Mueller. He had all of his signs set up. There was a 88 or 89-year-old man in a GMC pickup, come around this long curve, no trees, everything wide open, doing about 70 miles an hour. Corey had 2 cars stopped. This pickup clipped the second car that was in line, come around the car on the shoulder, and Corey saw him and started running. And the guy clipped Corey, flipped him up in the air, threw him about 200 feet, and put Corey in the hospital for 3 days. Luckily, there was no broken bones or anything, but Corey continued to work for us for about 2 years after that. And then the third incident I want to tell you about is with a crash truck, attenuator. We were following a TxDOT crew over on I-45. Late one afternoon, this 18-wheeler, we were over on the shoulder. This 18-wheeler pulled over on the shoulder, run into the back of us, doing about 65, 70 miles an hour, and this 18-wheeler caught on fire. It ruined our attenuator. The driver came out okay with back injuries, but he was okay. But when they put out the fire, the driver of the 18-wheeler was still sitting there with his hands on the steering wheel. So we don't know whether he went to sleep or died on impact or whatever, but those 3 incidences will burn in my memory forever. All 3, I believe, were because of driver inattention. Whether they were talking on the cell phone or looking at their text or doing whatever, but driver inattention. Now we have new laws, we have education, we have better training, so hopefully these accidents can be reduced. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. I hope you have heard something here today that will cause you to stop and think. Be more attentive and alert, and really respect work zones as you drive through them. Again, I want to thank our guests for coming. Appreciate the media here today for taking this message back to your audience, readers, and websites to help us spread this important safety message. I want to leave you with this one thought. When you drive through a work zone, drive through it like you work there, like it's your office, because that's what it is for many of our workers. Thank you and drive home safely. Please stay focused on driving.